matter where you are in the world, nonprofits universally are expected to do more with less. And whether faced with dramatically shrinking budgets or constrained by global stay-at-home ordinances, digital transformation is no longer an abstract question about the vision for the future. The future is here, and the need to digitally transform is a necessity for any business or nonprofit to survive in the era of COVID-19. It's an essential conversation that I'm really excited to be taking part in at Sektor 3.0 today. First, I want to ground our conversation with Asana's mission. At Asana, our company goal is to help humanity thrive by enabling the world's teams to collaborate effortlessly. We believe the world can be a better place when teams are equipped to focus on the work that drives change and matters most. Let me tell you why we think that's important. While the number of applications used to collaborate and volume of messages sent has been on the rise since the 90s, we haven't seen it paired with an increase in productivity that we'd expect with such a dramatic spike in the number of messages sent. Today, the average employee uses 10 different applications to complete their tasks every day. And the more apps they use, the longer they spend feeling distracted or procrastinating. Collaboration, in its simplest form, can be broken down into the 3 C's: communication, content, and coordination. Teams have invested heavily in technology solutions for the first 2 C's, communication and content. And as a result, interest in remote communication tools has exploded. But in many cases, teams have not invested in the 3rd C of collaboration, the coordination layer. Coordination answers the question, who is doing what by when? Without coordination, we spend more time in unnecessary meetings, reading more content, drowning in emails, but not advancing our mission-critical work. As a result, most teams have resorted to makeshift solutions to coordinate their work. The most common are meetings, slides, spreadsheets, but these solutions don't scale because they're just a snapshot in time, not a shared and dynamic plan of accountability and action. Time invested in maintaining spreadsheets to coordinate teams keeps us busy and it maintains the status quo, but it doesn't empower you to scale your efforts, nor does it lead to more collaboration. Some teams have invested in traditional project management tools, but these are difficult for teams to adopt beyond professional project managers because they force users to conform to how their software defines a project lifecycle. While suited for management roundtables, the living connection to the underlying work being done is missing. That's why we built Asana. Asana is one of the pioneers of a new category of software called work management. Work management is all about giving teams clarity of plan, purpose, process, and responsibility. It solves the problem of team coordination and answers the question of who's doing what by when. Because Asana integrates with your communication tools like Microsoft Teams and Slack, in addition to content solutions like Google Drive and OneDrive, Asana adds a truly collaborative layer to the spaces where your work lives and is already taking place. Asana helps coordinate the elements of work: people, plans, projects, processes, information, and content, so teams can spend their time collaborating to solve problems. Projects are time-bound initiatives such as fundraising campaigns, events, and IT implementations. Processes are ongoing workflows such as design requests, volunteer training, and employee onboarding. By managing your team's work in one place, you get a single source of truth on project progress, a central hub for workflow processes, and a reduction in work about work so that you have more time to focus on the stuff that matters. Asana is all about building the connective tissue between the mission that you all believe in as an organization and your day-to-day work. We view this essential business need through the pyramid of clarity. At Asana, we believe that organizations do their best work when people have clarity of purpose, plan, and responsibility that can connect their work to their overall mission. We also know that people need the flow, the time, and the space to get that work done. We're on a constant journey to provide not just a work management solution, but a work management culture to get us there. One that takes into account the needs of the individual and the broader company culture required to support these needs. Collaboration is not just a technology solution. It's the cultural willingness to share content and embrace the accelerators that enable broader engagement, which in turn yields greater returns. In 2019, Asana commissioned Sapio Research to analyze the behaviors and attitudes of more than 10,000 knowledge workers globally. The key takeaway was that the majority of employees' time, 60%, is spent on work about work, almost twice the amount that they believed they're spending on it, which was 35%. Work about work are the activities that take away from meaningful, skilled work, including communicating about work, searching for information, switching between apps, managing shifting priorities, and chasing down the status of work. This leaves employees with limited time for thoughtful, deep work. Our survey found that 27% of their time was spent on skills-based tasks, the specialized craft that they were trained and hired to do. And just 13% of their time was left over to strategize and plan how their organizational goals were going to be achieved. Our research found 2/3 of meetings were deemed unnecessary. Just to give you a sense of scale, in 2019, these bad meetings were predicted to cost the US economy alone $400 billion in lost productivity. Work about work is the problem statement that Asana was founded to address and is uniquely suited to solve. But the world has changed, and so too has the nature of day-to-day work. Asana commissioned a follow-up study in April of this year to evaluate the behaviors and attitudes of more than 5,000 full-time employees working from home globally. We found that employees who use a work management platform feel more supported by their manager and believe they're more productive while working remotely compared to employees who do not use a work management platform. Work management is a need that exists across the public and private sectors, and this is truer today than it ever was before. When time is money and sources of funding become increasingly harder to come by, to track, and apply for, not having a work management solution can quickly emerge as an existential threat to nonprofit solvency. That's why in 2018, we launched the Asana for Nonprofit program, which was founded to provide affordable access to Asana's technology and services to nonprofits that do good and could not otherwise afford it. We're making true on this commitment through 2 programs, the Asana Nonprofit Discount and the Asana Advisor Program. The Asana Nonprofit Discount makes our technology more accessible, granting eligible nonprofits access to 50% off their choice of an annual plan. And because we know that change is hard, the Asana Advisor Program grants any nonprofit that purchases a plan through us the ability to request free 1-hour consultations with an advisor, which is a member of our pro bono community of Asana employees that volunteer their time to ensure success for nonprofits who choose to join us in their journey through digital transformation. In sum, your ability to achieve your goals through Asana is what gets us closer to fulfilling our mission every day. I'd love to share a few examples of how nonprofits became more successful and were able to unlock their real-world impact after implementing Asana. First is Human IT, whose story demonstrates how an organization can scale their impact through digital transformation and constantly improving company-wide processes. It's estimated that over 20 million Americans live without access to the internet. Combine this with the fact that computers and the toxic and hazardous materials that make them run are often carelessly thrown away and destined to pollute landfills. Human IT was founded in 2012 as a solution to both problems. helping to bridge the digital divide while addressing one of the world's largest sources of toxic pollution, electronic waste. Through their e-waste recycling program, they've been able to save 2 million pounds of e-waste from landfills while helping thousands of families in underserved communities. In 2015, they expanded their offering to provide refurbished computers and low-cost internet, and by 2019, they added digital literacy services and tech support for over 30,000 families. Human IT chose Asana very early on as a company, but in their time before, the process of tracking each piece of e-waste from refurbishment to distribution required an employee to print out a spec sheet, fill it out by hand, and then tape it to the computer being fixed. But often employees couldn't read each other's handwriting, and taped pieces of paper had trouble sticking to computers that were stored in warehouses. The team kept facing the same issue that others who use manual processes do, which is where Asana came in. Through Asana, human IT moved away from manual processes that lacked transparency, accountability, and limited the number of computers that human IT could restore and distribute to those in need. In doing so, they were able to build cross-functional transparency for strategic projects, which kept everyone informed and clear on responsibilities. It limited duplicative work, and it centralized their content. They were also able to centralize their communications with external partners, and that allowed them to redirect more than double the amount of e-waste from landfills from 2018 to 2019 alone. One way that human IT built cross-functional transparency was through the work of their brand manager, Marcos Coronander. Every morning, he uses an Asana board for their daily marketing huddle, which you can see on the left. There, he and his team add their individual priorities, and when an idea got prioritized, it was moved into the marketing strategy project, which you can see to the right. Each large initiative represented by a task is then broken up into subtasks, where Marcos involves cross-functional collaborators and stakeholders to keep everyone informed and clear on responsibilities. Marcos then uses a central content calendar to track the organization's content roadmap. And that way everyone can follow along and know what's being published on the blog and social media. By taking an iterative approach to how marketing initiatives are managed, Marcos has built out workflows responsible for increasing content output on social media from bi-weekly to nearly daily. By having its processes buttoned up in Asana, human IT became the perfect candidate to partner with the city of Detroit to help close the digital divide there. The expansion of human IT into Detroit is projected to create over 50 new jobs, give thousands of local students and residents access to devices and internet connections in one of the United States' most digitally underserved areas. With Asana, they've been able to increase the number of devices distributed annually by over 5 times year over year, and are on track to double the number of internet connections provided this year over last. Through the story of Together We Rise, we'll learn how collaboration was unlocked through communication and accountability. When Danny Mendoza discovered that his cousin was living in a car, he began raising funds and studying the complex bureaucracy of the foster care system to better understand how to get his cousin the home he needed and deserved. This was the inspiration for Danny to launch Together We Rise, which was founded to improve the lives of foster children who often find themselves forgotten and neglected by the public. Through collaboration with individuals, companies, and community partners, Together We Rise brings critical resources to support and enhance the lives of children in foster care in the United States. As his team grew, colleagues began having trouble remembering everything they had to do. Endless emails and sticky notes made details impossible to keep track of. But when you miss the birthday or high school graduation of a child in foster care, those details aren't small anymore. Through Asana, They could hold the team accountable, so all the responsibilities and details needed to host an event or onboard a teammate wouldn't fall through the cracks. They eliminated the need for constant check-ins by managing their work in one place, eliminating the redundant meetings, in-office emails, and sticky notes. And improve cross-department communication, making it easier for employees to share their workload and complete cross-functional projects efficiently. To better manage their growing team, Asana was used to create meeting agendas, which you can see on the left, which brought transparency to each employee's workload and added a level of mindfulness to the way that managers distribute tasks for their team to complete. By creating reports for each member of their team, which you can see on the right, managers gained a bird's eye view into the tasks that their team were working on throughout the week. This visibility into each teammate's workload helped address issues with employee burnout, which is a real problem in the nonprofit sector. When universities and dormitories shut down due to the pandemic, students were asked to go home, but in foster care, oftentimes there was no home for them to return back to. To support foster youth returning home from college, Together We Rise built a program to provide financial support to ensure they could help reimburse at least some of those costs that students incurred through this painful transition. But building a program with so many requirements and steps to complete requires deep cross-functional collaboration. With Asana, they found a solution. By creating a Asana form, which you can see on the left, they guaranteed that their team only received complete submissions containing all the information they needed to action each request. Each submission is then converted into an actionable task in Asana, which you can see in the screenshot to the right. This saved hours in email typically spent chasing down the details that they needed to even start processing a single request if it was submitted via email and incomplete. Next, they use rules, which streamlines routine tasks and automates workflows without the manual upkeep typically required in project management software. Each project can handle up to 20 rules, and each rule can automate up to 5 actions, all with one trigger. So taking this example, once someone from their verification department adjusts the custom field or label as approved, they're able to build rules that can automatically leave a comment letting others know this application was approved, to add this task into a project that tracks all approved applications, place the task into their finance department's in progress section, reassign this task to that project's lead, and then add any key stakeholders to this task to ensure visibility if needed. If you're nerding out on this, then make sure to check out my VOD recording where I'll provide an in-depth tutorial on how to use rules to automate your workflows, because it's been an absolute game changer for me, just like it has for Together We Rise. By sharing organizational goals, building clear processes, and automating their donor management steps, they're able to focus on relationship building, freeing up more time to identify and engage new sources of funding. Before Asana, they were able to help 10,000 foster children a year. But with Asana, they saw a 9x increase to over 90,000 children whose lives they were able to positively impact. And that impact is real for every single one of those lives. Next is the Young Survivor Coalition, who used Asana to help combat employee burnout. When young adults hear you have breast cancer, they often turn to the internet and social media for resources, support, and guidance to help make sense of their diagnosis. Founded in 1998 by 3 women who were all under 35 when they received their diagnosis, the Young Survivor Coalition, or YSC, is now the go-to organization for young adults facing breast cancer head-on. Through their work, they support more than 84,000 young survivors and 3,600 co-survivors through a peer support system. They host an annual 3-day summit, which in 2019 had over 700 attendees, and provide educational resources for young survivors to help them understand their diagnosis and options for treatment. On the front lines of YAC's community engagement is Mary Atwater, the digital marketing manager tasked to ensure the promotion and delivery of all content, events, emails, social media, and website content for their organization. Between the large volume of work requests, the need to track project progress, and manage a small team that's working on simultaneous deadlines and priorities, they knew they needed a work management solution. By tracking their work in Asana, they were able to focus on producing more quality resources for young adults affected by breast cancer instead of rushing to get things out the door. Through Asana, they were able to combat burnout by giving staff more time to focus on supporting their mission while educating others across the organization on the process their team uses for marketing-related requests. They streamlined the content creation process so that the priorities of the team, as well as the responsibilities of the individual, were given clarity. They made sure that work doesn't fall through the cracks and that deadlines were able to be met. A key issue that Mary's team was facing were the constant requests to send urgent emails, which left her team mired in reactive work and unable to clearly communicate the time, effort, and individual steps required to do what seemed to be an easy task to colleagues across the organization, but they had no idea or insight into the marketing team's process for getting those simple emails done. By creating an email request template task, which you can see on the screenshot to the left, people across their organization gained visibility into the otherwise hidden layers of process and work required to send what otherwise seemed to be an easy task. By introducing transparent process to their cross-functional partners, this new process helped bring more structure to their work, which they were then able to convert into a more intentional strategy. Sourced email ideas are fantastic, but you can't send them all at once or even once every day. People get email burnout. So what Mary did was she built a centralized campaign tracking project, which you can see to the right. And that allowed them to strategically coordinate these internally sourced ideas intentionally within broader outbound email campaigns. This allowed them to best leverage these really great ideas while simultaneously enabling them to share their team's priorities with organizational leadership. After seeing success with email requests, Mary followed a similar process, but this time for social media requests, with approved submissions added to their shared social media content calendar, which you can see to the right. Mary and her team built order by adding process to what otherwise felt like chaos. But in doing so, she was able to plan more effectively and produce a larger volume of quality work. Their team also saw real results. With Asana, they were able to increase internet social media referrals by 175%. They reduced the time to kick off summit planning by 80%, and they increased their blog views by nearly 200%. Every one of us knows someone in their lives that has been affected by breast cancer. Their increase in blog views isn't just a data point. It represents real people who were able to find community, better educate themselves on the options for treatment available, but more importantly, gain access to hope. Next, I'd like to share the story of Islamic Relief Canada, who uses Asana to decisively pivot and take swift action in the face of disaster. Since 2015, hundreds of thousands of Rohingya have fled Myanmar to escape ongoing ethnic cleansing in the country. In Syria, millions have either died or fled the civil conflict there, which is one of the worst humanitarian crises of our time. And in September 24, 2019, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake struck Pakistan. Islamic Relief Canada, or IRC, provides aid for these crises and engages Canadians to donate in support of those affected by sudden emergencies. They serve the most vulnerable regardless of gender, race, or religion through international development and humanitarian assistance projects that focus on issues of emergency access to food and water, health, and education. As a 50-person team operating in 30 countries, the IRC turned to Asana because they needed to remove organizational silos, to better inform and connect their teams, to respond quicker to unanticipated situations, whether pivoting their fundraising campaigns during COVID-19 or deploying aid during a disaster, and to reduce time spent in meetings, eliminating the need to chase teammates down for follow-up actions and to check in on the status of their work. Before Asana, the IRC relied on technology that was more appropriate for a small company. They used systems that didn't connect to one another, which ultimately led to limited visibility, access to information, and siloed workflows. This ultimately blocked them from effectively achieving their ambitious goals. By managing their volunteer programs with Asana, the entire team had visibility into all of their initiatives that were currently in flight around the world. They also standardized program elements like volunteer communications, events, and recruitment using templatized tasks and projects, which you can see in the screenshot to the left. Through the IRC bulletin on the right, every employee has visibility into useful information, is able to surface best practices, share technology hacks, or better understand organizational policies. Asana also helps the IRC take action in the face of emergencies faster. For example, if a catastrophic event occurs, a task is added to their emergency appeals board, which you can see on the left. And that then sends a notification to their globally distributed team members. Their programs team is able to get the details they need to better inform the best course of action, with updates shared by their fields teams on the ground directly into those tasks that then accelerates their ability to act and move fast. Their marketing teams are then able to create the creative assets needed to launch fundraising campaigns that fuel their ability to deliver emergency aid by activating and engaging their network of donors and volunteers across Canada. By centralizing their communications process, creating template projects for emergency appeals, and eliminating the information silos, Islamic Relief Canada was able to achieve levels of institutional efficiency and organizational clarity responsible for helping them launch a globally coordinated emergency appeals system so that within 72 hours, in the case of Pakistan's earthquake in 2019, they were able to collaborate and communicate 75% faster than they did before. If you've ever found yourself in a state of emergency or in need of help, you know that every hour matters and every minute counts. Since Asana serves as a hub for an organization's mission-critical projects, maintains an institutional memory for critical work processes, and centralizes organization-wide communications, Asana has been instrumental in the ability for organizations to maintain business continuity in the face of COVID-19. Before I end this presentation, I want to share just a few examples of nonprofits who have used Asana to stay engaged and collaborate for good in the time of COVID-19. New York Cares is New York City's leading volunteer management organization. Each year, more than 50,000 volunteers serve upwards of 500,000 clients through programs aimed at improving education, meeting immediate needs, and revitalizing public spaces. During the pandemic, all their volunteer onboarding, training, and activation was conducted remotely and coordinated with Asana. As an organization that runs 1,600 volunteer projects each month, this is no small task. During the pandemic, between March 16th and August 1st, 2020, New York Cares has been able to activate 26,400 volunteers who have engaged in a total of 81,300 hours of service and have been able to serve 5,900,000 meals to New York City's most vulnerable. Hope for Haiti is a nonprofit dedicated to improving the quality of life for the Haitian people. They support and help lift Haitians out of poverty through programs that focus on education, healthcare, infrastructure, and access to water. Asana helps teams like theirs stay connected and informed so that when an emergency like COVID-19 strikes, they're able to develop and execute medical response projects and communicate safety protocols that are used by doctors and medical staff responsible for protecting everyone in the field. FIEC operates out of Fortaleza, Brazil, and represents the industrial workers of Ceará, supporting their health and quality of life. They provide professional training, industry qualification standards, and specialize in technological services, innovation, and executive education. Since implementing Asana in March of this year, Tadeo's team of 47 has been 100% remote, but still has been able to collect and distribute 25 tons of food to families in socially vulnerable situations, produce and donate 30,000 full-face shields, and prototype an assistive breathing device and donate hospital equipment. While I know that Sektor 3.0 isn't designed exclusively for nonprofits, if there's anything I want to convey as a key takeaway, it's this. Change always seems scary, especially before you or your organizations commit to it. It can appear expensive in time, in energy, and sometimes money, especially when maintaining the status quo is seen as an option. But change takes work and is often hard. I encourage you all, no matter what sector you live in, to follow the lead of these nonprofits, which have to succeed with just a fraction of the budgets that so-called normal businesses usually have. In the United States, a typical business allocates up to 11% of their budget to include overhead and technology costs. Compare that to 1.3% that nonprofits are able to set aside to spend on the same. All of the nonprofit stories of success were made possible through embracing technology and by a continued commitment to digital transformation. It's made a difference for their work and has been instrumental to making the change that they're able to make in the communities that they serve and provide the real-world impact that you saw here today. I want to now open it up for Q&A, although at the moment I believe there's only been one question. With that said, if there are any other questions that pop up, feel free to reach out to a member of our team. You can reach out to us via nonprofits@asana.com. But one question that often pops up is why choose Asana as a work management or project management platform? And I think the difference is in work management versus project management. Some project management tools, like a Trello, for example, forces teams and organizations to view work through a single lens. In the case of Trello, that's through the boards feature, which is just one kind of view that you're able to see within Asana. Within the presentation that I shared, you were able to see various different ways of viewing a project, one of which is a list, which is probably one of my favorites because it allows you to see the full scope of all the small details that need to get done in a project. You're also able to click on a tab that allows you to see the exact same information in a Kanban board view, which is great for people who like to view things in process from, a backlog to in process, vision, completed, as well as if you're organizing an event, that requires you to see lots of visual elements. For example, if you're throwing an event and you need to see what the various venues look like versus what some of the art that you're going to be using, flower arrangements, etc. These are all things that nonprofits use for throwing fundraisers that get the funding that they depend on. So being able to see things in a Kanban board style view is essential to some teams. You're also able to view the exact same information within a timeline view, which is you were able to see that in Mary's email content calendar that allowed a global, like a bird's eye view that allowed her team to see what email campaigns were not just in flight at the moment, but were scheduled to take off within any given period of time. So in the selection of a work management tool, what Asana then allows you to do is provide the flexibility that every individual and team needs to identify which way of viewing a project makes most sense to them, rather than forcing a single view upon everyone in the organization. I believe that's the last question that we've received, but like I mentioned, if you have any questions about Asana, work management, how to apply for the Asana for Nonprofits program, which you can do by going to asana.com/nonprofits. I also invite you to go to that nonprofit page where you're able to scroll down and view all of the stories of nonprofit success in our customer case studies that I shared with you today. With that said, I want to thank everybody for taking the time for viewing this. I encourage you all to take a look at my VOD recordings, which are going to be shared soon. Through those, you'll be able to see how you're able to set up your projects in Asana. I have 2 courses. One course is going to be Asana 101, where I'll show you how to use Asana using Asana Free. And this is great for teams of 15 or less. I'll show you some great productivity tips that will help you collaborate and communicate effectively, which is great, especially now that most of us are still working remotely due to COVID-19. And then there's also going to be a second video that demonstrates how to integrate the creation of an intake form, the creation of a custom field for tracking, creating rules to automate those manual processes, as well as workload to be able to manage resource allocation for your teams using volunteers. So if anything you saw looked exciting to you and you were nerding out on the productivity you could get, make sure to check out those recordings. Thank you and have a wonderful day.